You're kind of a wrecking crew yourself with your course banquet there.
Oh, just wait. I'm going to crush this thing over my head when we're done.
I was just going to suggest that you do that.
It's going to happen.
I think it's going to happen. Do it. Are you gonna?
Here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you very much. We'll catch you next week. Ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. You know, Soul Kitchen mainly.
What?
That's what I was thinking.
He doesn't sound like that. It's not even close.
Well, of course he doesn't sound like that. I'm Alex Huard. He's Jim Morrison. Of course.
I don't even recognize it though.
Was he sleeping in the rain? Yeah.
What song is that?
Soul Kitchen.
No,
Let me sleep all night in your Soul Kitchen.
That's okay. I recognize that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, trust me, Brent. I bet anybody would prefer me to hum or whistle or sing a tune over you.
You made a karaoke comment in the Foreigner 4 show.
I sure did. Yeah, I can't wait to hear you sing karaoke.
I sing in a band.
Oh, that's right.
I sing in a
Seasons
couple
of
bands,
Wither.
actually. Yeah, I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
So are you hustling me? Are you pretending to sing horribly, but you're really like the next Tony Bennett? Or
see, in our little ensemble, you're the
you can't talk to me about ensemble while I'm drinking.
You're the singer. In our little
Evidently, I'm not. I can't even sound like Jim Morrison. Okay.
I just didn't recognize it. It was a bit pitchy.
It was a bit pitchy. Yeah. Saw that also in the 4 episode.
Oh, that one note. It was like, whoa.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know. It sounded like a grunting elephant or something like that. Boy, just blazing right on into this one. How you doing, Brent?
Good.
Thursday night. Good evening, everybody.
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks to all the new subs and the and those tuning in and hanging out with us each night. It's nice to see the new names popping up and chatting with us.
It is.
Rennie, Penny,
Jenny,
Bobo, always good to see you back. Mike, Deke, T-Bone. I don't want to miss anybody either, right?
This is
like so important.
What was that show when we were kids? Well, when I was a kid, it was much different when you were a kid. But there was a show where, was it like The Friendly Giant or something? That the guy used to read names on the show. And then, obviously it was like, Tom and Bill and Jack. And he said, yeah, I can see you through the TV. And the kids are like, whoa, he can see me. Obviously, cool. It's like a common name. What was that? What was that show? Do you know that show? Is it like The Friendly Giant or something like that?
I don't. My dad used to say, look way, way up, and I'll call Rusty or something like that from The Friendly Giant, something like that.
It was a Canadian show. Oh, I think it was Polka Dot Door.
Or Polka Dot Door.
Yeah. But whoever it was said,
Pokeroo never.
There you were.
Well, he never spoke, did he?
No, but there were other characters.
Mr. Dressup was Canadian.
Memory. I'm old, Alex. I'm an old man.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Dressup was Canadian, right?
Yes, he was.
Right.
Yep.
Canadian. Mr. Rogers.
Yep. Correct.
What we're trying to say is good to see you, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, hanging out with us. It's been a lot of fun. Episode 54 here, talking about the Doors. The Doors.
The Doors.
Doors. See, I never know how to do like a self-title, like Boston's Boston.
The Doors.
Doors.
Debut record.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
For a lot, I love it. Like all of my reviews are like, so what do you think? The Doors have never been something on my radar. Baby Light My Fire, Riders on the Storm. I think Riders on the Storm might be one of my mom's favorite songs. Correct me if I'm wrong, Holly, in the chat, because I know you're there. But it was always kind of like the keys and the singing of Morrison that never really resonated with me. It always just seemed a little too which is probably not really psychedelic if I listen to real psychedelic bands, but it always just seemed a little too psychedelic and a little too 60s and a little too like, but it was different this time around, man. I feel like it's like eating mushrooms, from being a kid to getting older, to eating mushrooms, where you just get into an acquired taste, where you start to just, things start to grow on you, you know, kind of like with mushrooms.
Now, did you so you said two things there. You said, like, you know, Morrison was kind of an acquired taste, but then you made a comment about the songs as well.
Yeah.
And I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay.
So which is it? Or is it both?
Well, at this point now, I'm pretty big. I enjoyed this.
Good.
I enjoyed this album.
Good.
So a lot of them did start to sound a little bit the same. I don't know if that's where you're going with it, but like the keys started to get like a little bit annoying at times. Mm-hmm. But then there's also some really good grooves that are on like some specific songs. Mm-hmm. But yeah, overall, it was a nice change of pace again. Okay. You know, it's nice to get into something like this, and they almost feel like the punk of the 60s, you know. And I don't know if they were really dubbed anything of like the Bad Boys or anything like that of the 60s, but it seemed like with what they were doing and with the way like even Morrison presented his vocals and the way that the guitar soloed, it was kind of like, it was a bit more hardcore in comparison to
really
the rest of like the 60s stuff that might have been happening.
I get that. I think they were a little bit more rebellious in terms of like, you know, Morrison's attitude. And where I was going with that is that whether we like it or not, Morrison was, you know, the Doors in essence, right? I mean, I know there was Ray Manzarek and all the rest of it. I fully recognize that, probably more than a lot of other people. However, the Doors is a polarizing band. And I think the reason why that is because Morrison and his kind of like music shaman and rock poet kind of persona tended to eclipse the Doors as a musical entity, right? And they're polarizing in the sense that people either really like that or they hated it. And so if you hated Jim Morrison, you hated the Doors, and you overlooked, like, you know, songs like Light My Fire, which were like, the instrumentation's fantastic, you know, but it didn't matter because Morrison was too much for you.
I get that. Okay. See, I'm not very good at reading your mind. Anytime you try and figure out where it is that you're going, you're like, Alex, where am I going with this? I'm never going to get it. So you can always ask. I'm always open to you asking, but it doesn't mean I'm going to nail it. But yeah, that kind of makes sense. Okay. If you didn't like Morrison, you didn't like the Doors. It took some time. But again, I think I took a listen to this thinking like, man, this is different. This is kind of interesting. And this time Morrison's vocals didn't bother me. But I think you're right. I think back in the day, it was likely his vocals, but also the keyboard. Is that an organ? Hammond? Is this a Hammond organ?
It's like, you know,
just getting into that because I did actually even a lot of listening to following the Rolling Stones Exile of Billy Preston albums and getting into his keyboard work, and I was like, I dug that in the way that he played and things like that. So I feel like after coming out of that too, hearing these keys and how all over the place, like not all over the place, but like how involved, how included the keys are.
Yes. I
don't think we've listened to a band that have keys like this in them yet.
No, we haven't. And it's more of an electric piano than a Hammond. A Hammond is kind of more haunting. It's more of an organ, but like,
okay.
I think that Manzarek played more of an electric piano.
Okay.
But it's the lead instrument often, which is weird.
Yeah.
The Doors were a little unorthodox that way. They didn't have a bass player. So, you know, in the place of a bass player, they had the keys. And the keys, I think Manzarek was, he was, Morrison aside, he was kind of the de facto leader of the Doors. He was the spokesman often. He did all the interviews, and he was the guy who was in the front. So it was kind of unconventional right from the start. And it was, you make a good point about the 60s, because you think about the 60s and you think about the Mamas and Papas and the Zombies and all those bands that were kind of, a little bit safe, right? They were very melodic, Beach Boys, very tuneful.
Monkeys came to mind too, just a little bit, like in some of these songs. Yeah.
But the Doors were kind of a little bit more bad boy, and Morrison. I mean, like, he was a kid, like, you've heard all the stories. We don't have to go through all the things that he did, and with public exposure and the LSD and missing shows and all that stuff, right? Passing it on stage. So they were different, to be sure.
Yeah. All kind of started around this album, didn't it? Or probably earlier, but the whole LSD trip and the end. And
he would miss shows. Like, he would be in the hotel. Everybody would be at the venue backstage, and they would have to go on, but he was at the hotel tripping on LSD, and somebody would go and get him and bring him, and then he would do the second show.
Well, they talk about, in recording this, that LSD trip he took during the recording of the end, and how he came back and kind of trashed the studio on LSD, thinking that it was on fire because he saw the red lights in the studio. And so he thought that he basically took a fire extinguisher to all the instruments and things like that and destroyed all of the band's instruments and a lot of the studio, and the studio was super pissed that he did this. So Elektra had to pay for everything to be, fixed, obviously repaired, and they felt like, because that was kind of swept under the rug, that was the moment Morrison sort of felt he could get away with anything. Oh,
really? I wouldn't be surprised by that, because he did. He did feel like he could get away with anything. I think he was just like absolutely and completely lawless.
I will never be able to relate, but it can't be easy either. That's for sure.
As who? As Ray Manzarek or as Jim Morrison?
Well, as a rock star with access to copious amounts of money and drugs.
Oh, I see.
And free time.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know where that line is. Like, I don't, you have some people who, are completely able to manage themselves. And then you have people who are just, he was certainly the latter.
Well, it's a great kickoff to the album.
Yeah.
These keys, the way that it starts, it's cool. It's funky. It's a groove. I love this song.
It's a cool start, right? That drum pattern with he's hitting the rim of the snare. It's like a bossa nova kind of groove. Do, 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 do.
I guess it's also a combination of a couple of older songs. I guess they said, I don't know if it was Manzarek or Krieger mentioned that they stole a lot. They stole a lot of riffs, and they stole a lot of chord structures and things like that. So this is like a combination of a Paul Butterfield song.
Oh, really?
And a Ray Charles song. Yeah, Shake Your Moneymaker.
Oh, is that him?
It's sort of like, it's not exactly it, but it's like, if you take a listen to Shake Your Moneymaker, you can hear the you can kind of hear that in the guitar playing of that. So yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently there was a little bit of lifting going on this record and subsequent records too.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said they admitted that's what they were doing.
Who admitted that?
They were taking
Manzarek?
Krieger or Manzarek, I think. I think about him, Robbie Krieger. But
do you know that Robbie Krieger only started playing guitar a few months before the Doors formed in '65? This album came out in '67, right? I think 65, like summer of '65, they met. I think Manzarek was in a band with his two brothers, something like that, and his two brothers left, and then he formed the Doors. But Krieger had only been playing guitar for a couple of months before he joined the band, which is like ridiculous to think about now, right?
Yeah. I mean, you could maybe hear some of that in some of these songs, only playing the guitar for about 3 years. I know we're going to get there, but as great as the end is, anyways, the guitar playing's it's fun. It's fun. It's
fun.
It's you could tell they were having a good time in there. So yeah, Break On Through, really cool tune. I put it on, and actually my son Hendrix went, "That's in the Minions movie," and that's like the second time that second or third time a song, because what was the other song that came in from Minions? You Really Got Me by the Kinks.
Okay.
I would play the Van Halen version.
Yeah.
And that's in one of the Minions movies. And he's like, this is from Minions.
So they went ahead and sold that then, or licensed it. There's an old story about the Doors, and Jim Morrison hated that stuff, right? He hated the commercialism and he hated all of the corporate aspects of music. And,
you don't say.
Yeah, right. And Buick, the story goes that Buick offered them back then like $75,000, a lot of money back then, to use Light My Fire. And they wanted to do a commercial with their whatever their new car was at the time. And they wanted to change the lyrics to Come On Buick, Light My Fire. And Jim Morrison said, if that happens, on my watch, and it actually goes through behind my back, I will take a sledgehammer to a Buick on a commercial, and it will air right beside your commercial. And I will tell everybody how much I despise Buick. And so Buick's like, okay, forget it then, whatever.
It's not going to happen. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. Good on you, Jim. Nice work, Jim.
No, he's serious about his passions.
Well, I mean, that wouldn't have been the first time, not necessarily contributing their music exactly to a car commercial, but they did, what was it, just before recording this, they recorded a Ford training video or something like that. There's a Ford training video that the band went into, and they watched. It was like 25 or 30 minutes or something like that, and they scored the instrumental. And I think that there are some pieces of that in that instrumental that made it into some songs on future albums. But
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like $200. They got $200 out of that.
$200.
$200 for everybody. Woo-hoo. Yeah, but that was it. That was good. It's good back then.
Oh, good times.
Yeah. I you know what I will say though, even in Soul Kitchen, which is a really good tune. I love this song.
Me too.
This is just a ton of fun. Yeah, maybe not lyrically, but again, I throw rocks all you want or educate me, but I did not get deep into Doors lyrics. Go for it, Brent. You up front.
This is funny because when you think about Soul Kitchen, you think depth, right? You think like, wow, so deep, and everybody kind of had that, like, nebulous idea of depth and rock poetry that Jim, but the lyrics are very vague all the time, right? Like it wasn't about one thing. Yeah. It could have covered a number of topics, but there were people out there who are these kind of lovers of like rock poetry who thought that Jim Morrison was the shaman again, right? But this song was about a soul food kitchen in Venice Beach called Olivia's, and he would hang out there. Yeah, that's it. Let me sleep all night in your soul kitchen. And so the cool. First line, I think, goes, the clock says it's time to go now, right? He would just hang out there all night because he loved it, and they would close and they would ask him to leave. And he would come back.
See, I love that so much more than something profound and like super, just intellectual. Like, yeah, it's about a kitchen he used to eat at.
It's
like,
a soul food.
Thank you. Yeah, I can relate to that.
There you go. I was actually kind of disappointed when I found that out because I was like, maybe this is like this. Maybe I'm one of those ding dongs who's like, I love the nebulous.
Yeah, you are one of those ding dongs. Well, what I was going to say is that what I didn't expect was like as much as like screaming, singing that he kind of does. Like he does quite a bit of that. And Break On Through, he's got some screaming-ish parts, and then same with Soul Kitchen. I wasn't really expecting that.
Well, he said himself, I'm not a singer. I'm a shouter.
Shouting. There you go. Not screaming, shouting.
One of his quotes, it's something like that. It's not that, but he said, I'm not a singer. I never said I was a singer. I'm a shouter or something like to that effect. Yeah, he.
But what a voice, man. But what a voice,
He does the job, right? I mean, like I don't know. I've never had a problem with Jim Morrison. I like the Doors. I like a lot of Doors songs. Like I love Soul Kitchen. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. you don't think of anything else really when you think of the Doors. You're right. I think you said that off the top, right? When you hear the Doors, you hear Jim Morrison, and you're like, there actually honestly could not have been any other name for this band.
Yeah. And it came from, what's the guy's name? Aldous Huxley was an author of a book called The Doors of Perception. That's where they got the name from. Yeah. And it was, again, some like psychedelic kind of LSD,
Let the doors of perception sing about your soul kitchen closing at 2 a.m. Time to go home.
That's right. But you know what? Like love Jim Morrison or hate Jim Morrison, he sang with passion.
Yeah.
I feel like when I listen to Jim Morrison sing, he means it.
Yeah. Well, it's like Roth too, right?
Yeah.
When you listen to David Lee Roth sing or whatever he's doing, you're in it, man. You are in it. You believe it. You're sold on it. You're having fun. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
On this record, as a matter of fact, I can't remember what song it is. There are mistakes. I think it's Light My Fire, actually, or Backdoor Man, or one of them. Anyway, there are mistakes. But who's the guy who produced this record? He left them all in. Oh, it is Backdoor Man, because he, that portion where Morrison says whatever that line is about pork and beans, his voice cracks at the very beginning. It just kind of like there's this weird kind of like hiccup in his vocal, and they left it in, which is cool. And the record's full of this stuff. And again, like we love that, right? Because it's authentic.
Totally. Well, they did say that this was basically like the Doors live at the Whiskey. Mm-hmm. Basically, in the recording of this, they used to play at the Whiskey. They were the gig band over there, and then they got fired. I think for
the end.
I think Morrison did some kind of profane-ridden Oedipus Rex quote or something, or reading, and then they got fired from there. Yeah. And then basically said that going into the studio, Sunset Sounds, as we know, so many bands have been through,
right.
That studio, and they basically went in, and this was like their live show. They recorded a lot of this stuff as if it were a live performance, which a lot of bands were doing, but I'm just saying, like, this was like made on the stage of the Whiskey, essentially.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. They worked all these songs up during their, I don't know if you'd call it a residency. They were kind of the house band at the Whiskey for a long time. And in essence, what they did was they just played a set. To your point, yeah. And Sunset Sound Recorders was perfect for the Doors in that regard, right? Because we know that Van Halen recorded their records there. Part of Purple Rain was recorded there. Who else? Part of Chinese Democracy. Axl Rose's Guns N' Roses recorded there a little bit.
Okay.
Pet Sounds was recorded there actually too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of traffic.
A lot of traffic.
And just a good grungy, dirty place to record.
Yeah. Perfect place.
Yeah.
Well, what do you know about the Crystal Ship? I'm not really, I mean, it's interesting. It's cool to listen to. It's not a favorite, but
I like it too, but it's kind of Baroque. It's got a Baroque kind of sound. It's peculiar. There's a little bit of controversy around this song in the sense that people think it's about different things. People think it's about crystal meth. Apparently it's not. Apparently it is about a woman that I think like Jim Morrison's first love. What's her name? He was breaking up with a girl and he called
Anita Pallenberg.
No. Wrong band.
Okay, sorry.
Mary Werbelow.
Tyler Moore.
No, Mary Werbelow was her name.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was his first girlfriend, apparently his first serious girlfriend, and this song apparently was a goodbye to her, like a breakup song. But then people thought it was about crystal meth, and the Crystal Ship was about like a meth trip. But apparently, he told the press that it was a goodbye song to this girl that he was very taken by.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Poor guy.
Mm-hmm.
Jim had heartbreak. Who knew? Cool. Yeah, I don't mind it. It's kind of one of those songs that loses me a little bit, but it's not. It doesn't. I wouldn't say it's in a bad way, but I kind of drifted mentally when it would, by the end of it. But
I like it. And again, considering what else was out there, obviously Pet Sounds and the Beach Boys and Zombies and the Animals, all those other bands. I don't know. I thought this kind of stood out. Like it was unique,
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, a lot of their stuff on this record sounds like the 60s, like that kind of like funky electric piano keyboard stuff. But this, like I said, has a Baroque kind of aspect to it. And it's different. I've always appreciated it.
So it's something they could do, I think, and they could do it well. Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. They could that showed, I think, their depth in terms of what they could.
Oh yeah,
what they could create.
Certainly, yeah. They say this is one of the best debut rock records of all time.
Wow.
Yeah, critics and
it's very good.
Yeah.
20th Century Fox. Now, is this about the movie studio? Was the movie studio around when this came out? Did they name the movie studio after this song?
I don't know. I would imagine it's about a girl. Obviously, if you listen to the lyrics, they're very clever, right?
Yes.
I think what they did, it's kind of like just a winky kind of take on the movie studios because they were around. And these guys were in, the Los Angeles kind of California area, if not the city itself. So it's kind of a take on, a woman is a 20th century fox, like she's ahead of her time kind of thing, but they're kind of, using the studio as kind of a foil.
Well, this is kind of a great example, I think, of that. It sounds like the Byrds. It sounds like the Monkees or the Beatles in some sense, but then you get into the lyrics, and that's where they get that rebellious sense, right? That's where they get into, as we get into the next one, the Alabama song, right? You start thinking about those lyrics and things that they're singing about. That's sort of the punk, I think, that I was thinking about of the 60s. That's what kind of puts them in a little bit of that category in comparison to the Mamas and the Papas of this time, of the Laurel Canyon,
for sure.
Bands.
And it's funny you say that about the Beatles, because Paul McCartney himself, after he heard this record, apparently said he wanted to kind of emulate the sound of the Doors on Sgt. Pepper as kind of a Beatles, how did he say it? A Beatles alias.
Alabama song.
Peculiar.
I'd heard, peculiar, interesting as well. Again, and showing what they can kind of do, this little weird, interesting little song, and include this in a great debut record. It's weird.
Yeah, this is a cover.
Oh, okay.
If you knew that.
Maybe that's why that.
I don't know who did this song originally, but I do know Bowie did it too.
Okay.
And it was kind of mixed in with his Space Oddity tune, like when he was like super brand new. I don't know who originally did the song, but yeah, it's a cover.
Got it. Did not. Maybe that's why it's familiar.
I don't know. The Doors, Morrison, changed the lyrics to, how does it go? Show me the way to the next little girl. That lyric.
The second part of the song, yeah. I feel by this time he's blasted and he's trying to find, Anyway.
So the original lyric was "Show me the way to the next pretty boy."
Oh.
Yeah. So he changed it to "the next little girl" from "the next pretty boy." But then there was a version, I think, that he did for some other record, and he actually sang the proper lyrics. He actually sang "pretty boy."
Oh.
Yeah.
Pretty boy, little girl, they both don't sound right. But, that's,
both,
that's...
mildly offensive.
Yeah. I mean, I guess little girl. Pretty boy could be.
Well, little girl too, though, right?
Well, I know. Well, boy and girl. It couldn't have just. Yeah, those are the bad words.
Maybe just keep whiskey bar instead of
That would have been fine.
Right?
Yeah.
Just keep whiskey bar.
Or, show me the way to the next
whiskey bar.
Urinal or something.
Urinal.
Or the next. Garbage can or, anything, It just
true.
Barf bag. Anyways.
Yeah. It was the 60s.
Cool. Nice little piece in the middle there. That's a little fun to listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last song on side one, Light My Fire.
This is the last song on side one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
It is.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. Which is weird, right? Sequencing wise, we love talking about that. I would have never sequenced this record in this way. Light My Fire could start this record, I think.
Break On Through is a great opener. I love the riff to get things going, but I think you could move Light My Fire up probably to number 3.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
I like that.
In the Light My Fire would work.
Mm-hmm.
It would make more sense if this one kicked off side 2, but I guess that would be Backdoor Man. So
I like that though.
Yeah, that is good too.
Yeah.
Light My Fire, Robbie Krieger's first song.
Yes. And he only wrote this because Jim Morrison said, you know what, if we don't have enough material, that means you guys need to start writing songs too. He did. And then Krieger's like, oh, okay, maybe I'll just go off and try it. And he wrote this, which is weird, right? Because it's a nice, like, if you think it's you know, the riff is on the electric piano, but there's so many notes in there. It's not just like, it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
I think he said something about like 14 chords, 14 different chords or something like that are used throughout this. And yeah, the most he's ever, I think, used, or at the time, the most he had ever used to create a song with.
I believe it. And he only started playing guitar a couple years before. It's like, I don't get that. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. I think it's a little long, but it's cool. I mean, the keyboard solo in here is all right for a time, but then I feel
I know exactly what you're saying. It's too much. It's 7 minutes plus. When the record company fashioned a single from it, they cut 4 minutes off of it. So it was like 3 minutes and something. So they cut it virtually in half for the single version that would play on the radio.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, just under 7 actually, 6:58. But either way, it's a long tune, and there's a lot of keyboard that I'm like, all right, move it along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Side 2, Backdoor Man.
Oh,
love.
Yeah,
one of my favorite tunes in this record.
What a just like you can't help but move when it kicks off, man. I love this song.
You know what's really cool about this week? So this week on, if you listen closely, it's really cool about this song, or not, if you're like, you know, somebody who's really sticky. I think it's around the 20-second mark. The drums that come in, you know, it starts out so very brooding, like do 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 do. The drum line that comes in, right?
Yeah.
He plays one of those notes right at 20 or 21 too quick. Now go back and listen to that, and you'll hear it, and you'll never hear the song the same way again. You'll hear that and go,
Damn it, Brent. I'm just trying to listen to the song. It's got a week to listen to an album. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to listen to it. You're like, you know that part where he sings just like this? I'm like, Brent, I heard the song 3 times, you know?
Go back and listen. No, you can hear it. Like, it's almost like clock strikes 10. Like, you hear that note and you're like, ooh. But you can hear the drum, like it's supposed to be evenly paced, but he hits it too quick. One of the notes is out of place. And see, now they could just like go in and move that around digitally.
Shove it. Just give it a nudge. I know.
But somebody said, you know what? We're going to have to cut tape on that. Just let it go. Just leave it. That's probably what happened.
Because we had to pay to repair the entire studio following the destruction from Jim Morrison. You know, apparently Jim was even just like, what, me? No, there's no way I did that. They couldn't even believe that he destroyed the instruments. Anyways,
that dude was so far gone for so long. He had no idea what was going on.
Can't believe that.
None.
Can't believe that. Yeah, I love Backdoor Man. It's just a song you can put on, drive down the road to, and just feel like a complete badass mother. You know?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Cool Runnings. You ever see the movie Cool Runnings?
No.
Badass mother.
Doesn't matter.
Moving on.
Moving on. I looked at you.
I think this was the first song that they actually recorded for the record.
technically, Moonlight Drive was the first song recorded for the album. Just didn't make the cut.
Where did that appear later on?
I think it appeared in like later on,
Like bonus material and stuff.
like 97 maybe it showed up. Super late in this, but I think what they said was they just couldn't recreate the feeling of it in the studio the way that it was, that they had played it either live or something like that or elsewhere, but and so they couldn't get that feeling they wanted, so they just didn't put on the record. And I think that there is that recording. They ended up recording it at a faster pace for an album later on, and then the version that they recorded in studio appeared on like a deluxe or bonus something in like the late 90s. Anyways, but with regards to I Looked at You, I'm not sure when that was recorded.
I think so. I think it was. It's kind of it's a very 60s sounding tune, right?
Oh yeah,
it's very much, of the time to me.
Yes,
it sounds like it
felt like the Beatles. This song felt like the Beatles to me. Nothing wrong with that, but yeah, they definitely were a little safe. And actually, that was what they said too, but not using a bass player. They didn't want to sound like any other rock and roll band, so that was part of the reason why they didn't have a bass player.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, they did everything that they could to try and not sound like every other rock and roll band, which is part of why they kept the bass player off.
See, that kind of makes sense because they have kind of a jazz, they had a 60s sound, but they didn't subscribe to, kind of the rock formula. So that makes a lot of sense. I know they brought a bass player in to kind of punch up a couple of the songs, but they didn't want to have a bass player in the band.
Yeah. Larry Netchell of the Wrecking Crew.
Yeah, right. Crack musicians. The Wrecking Crew.
Those guys, hey?
Yes.
The Wrecking Crew.
You're kind of a Wrecking Crew yourself with your chorus banquet there.
Oh, just wait. I'm going to crush this thing over my head when we're done.
All right. I was just going to suggest that you do that.
It's going to happen.
I think it's going to happen. Are you going to? At the end of the show?
Yeah, right at the end of the show.
It's really funny. I've been noticing, like, when we watch the show, people think the show is over before it's actually over.
I know.
So everybody in the comments kind of says, like, okay,
stop
great
saying
show.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Like 5 minutes. I'm like, the show's still happening. Like, oftentimes, some of the best parts of the show are at the very end. And people are like, okay, great show. Bye.
Well, yeah. Well, I guess we're through the bulk of it. So, I mean.
So now, let's offer an incentive to keep people around right to the very end. You could just crush a beer can on your head. Yeah. No, wait. Do it at the end of the show.
Not now?
No, not yet. Okay. Well, you can do it. Right. You can do it now and at the end if you want.
Well, no, there's still.
No, there's still a little bit left.
Still beer on it.
Crush that one now and then chug a beer before the end of the show and then crush it.
Before the end of the show? Okay, great. We got 3 songs to get through. I'll crush a beer. Here it goes. All right, I just spilled a little. All right, hold on. Okay, there we go. That'll smell good in the morning.
Right.
End of the night. End of the night.
I like the song. It's moody and a little bit eerie for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Moody and eerie, a little trippy. This
is a really old song. This I think was written by Manzarek and Morrison before Krieger joined the band, like in early 65 when they first got together.
Take it as it comes.
So for me, this is a number 9.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Amy said, we were listening to this album, she's like, this is a great song. And she likes that. She's a big Doors fan. She's like, this is a song I always liked. And I'm like, this is probably the shittiest song on this record.
This is rough. Wow, eh? Talk about trying to find an even level with your partner and just shittiest song. Wow. Let's sit down and listen to an album we both like. Oh, I really like this song. Shitty song. Boom. Great.
Oh, that's so funny. I didn't really.
You keep with it, Amy. Don't listen to Brent. All right. I wouldn't say it's true number 9, but I wouldn't say it's like you lead the album off with it either. But
it's not good. I don't think it is. Do you like it?
I mean, this is at this point, things are kind of sounding like some of the things start to sound the same. And I feel like, through some of this is you kind of get the same type of guitar and piano. So, I mean, I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's anything that stands out as like a great song.
I think it
could I write it? No, but it's not a great song. I don't know.
It's a true number 9. This is where kind of the theory of the number 9 came from. This is an example. It exemplifies number 9. It does.
So let's not. You remember we shouldn't talk about the number 9 album. Fair warning.
Oh,
This song just riddled with number 9s. I posted that on Reddit. Somebody had no, I didn't. It was like somebody was like Fair Warning was like top album of Van Halen's, and I'm like I can't. There is no song on Fair Warning that I could listen to.
Unchained.
Maybe 2, but
there's lots.
Unchained's fine. I know. What's the commercial song? Can't listen to the commercial song or recall the commercial song that when you listen
Sinner
to
Swing.
Sinner Swing, maybe. But
hear about it later. There's tons, man. That's a great record.
Somebody commented and they were like, you got to be in the right mood or mindset for this album. So they understood.
Okay.
They understood.
That's good. That's a good compromise. I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. It is dark. It's a dark record. It's not a fun record, except Unchained.
I know. You could say it was the end for Van Halen.
It was coming up to the end. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Again,
I'm just using that as a segue.
Oh, sorry.
The last song on the first album.
I was behind you there. I get what you're doing now. The end.
Got it.
It was the end. So
1 foot out the door.
Awful. That's it. This is terrible. This is probably the worst Van Halen song. Just like the end is, it's not the worst tune, but it's I don't like this song. The end.
You don't like it, eh?
It just plods on needlessly.
It's just, yeah.
Don't you think? Like,
I really liked it. I actually really enjoyed these moments.
Really?
Because they weren't like just super weird, like, and some of this was weird, but they actually have a lot of nice orchestration throughout this song as well that was really cool to listen to. And then you get into some of the solos and you're like, wow, what's going on here? But then you could kind of really I felt the live aspect of the band. Like everything was happening all at once.
I just feel like it's too long. It's needlessly long. I like the instrumentation. I kind of like where it's going most of the time, but I just feel like it just plods too long. So all in, what do you think, pal?
The Doors? 4.5.
Really?
4.5 out of 5.
Wow. 4.5. I think that's great. I'm glad that you liked it. I didn't think you were going to like it as much, to be honest.
I feel like I'm even still warming up to it. I feel like I like it, and I feel like there's even more to it that I can like. Just in the short amount of time that I have to listen to it, that I feel like there's more opportunity to really listen and really get into it and really start enjoying from the album.
The musicianship is really great. I mean, for me, especially Densmore on the drums. Like he's a very tidy, efficient player. He kind of reminds me of Ian Pace from Deep Purple in that way. He's very tasteful. He does a lot of cool stuff, and this is like 67 too, he's very imaginative, but he's also very tidy. Like he's a very clean player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. You know what? I feel like these guys sort of stood out. They fit right in to the 60s music, but they stood out in what they sang about and how they presented their music at times as well. So
yeah, I agree. And to, in a large part, that was Jim Morrison's doing. And maybe that was a good thing for the band. Maybe that was a bad thing for the band. They used to call him the Lizard King. I don't think the Doors would be anywhere near as highly revered without him. But at the same time, I think that there's two sides of the coin. I think that people really hate the Doors because of Jim Morrison too.
it's funny. It's like if you don't like the Doors because you don't like Jim Morrison, you sure as shit don't like the people that listen to the Doors. There ain't no way you're getting along with anybody that enjoys the Doors if you don't like Jim Morrison.
Agree. Fully agree.
I don't even think I could hang out with people that really like Jim Morrison.
I don't think I could hang out with Jim Morrison himself.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh. Wear a helmet if you're going out with Jim Morrison. Oh, speaking of helmets. Ready?
No, you got to give me an album first. Slow down.
Oh, yeah. The show's not quite over yet.
The show's not quite over yet.
All right. Jimi Hendrix, are you experienced?
Oh.
How about that?
Great.
How about that?
Sounds good.
All right. Drink up, buttercup. Let's see it.
No, I'm still finishing it. Just hold on a second.
Come on. Don't be a kid.
Okay?
Come on.
Would you just get off my back? You were a bully in school.
I wasn't. You've been drinking that beer for like an hour. Right. What's wrong with you? Come on.
I'm a father, Brent. That's what's wrong with me.
You're a pillar of the community.
All right, here we go. Okay, here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you very much. We'll catch you next week. Ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.